There's a thief that doesn't steal your money or your time, it steals your awareness. It creeps into the hearts of those who've been given much talent, success, even divine purpose. You'll recognize it by its first victim: gratitude. Imagine a musician who masters their craft, pours their soul into their art, and one day stands on a stage to roaring applause. In that moment, they forget the years of teachers who guided them, the loved ones who sacrificed, the unseen grace that carried them. The thief whispers, "You did this alone." This is pride's first move, to isolate you from the truth that no one rises without help. Anointing is a gift, but arrogance turns that gift into a weapon against your own soul. Now picture this musician years later. The applause fades. The stages grow smaller. They're alone in a dimly lit room, staring at awards gathering dust. The melodies that once flowed now feel forced. Why? Because pride severed their connection to the source of their gift. They confused the song with the singer, the brushstroke with the artist. Arrogance is a slow poison. It turns passion into performance, purpose into pride. But here's the hope. The thief can be exposed. It starts by asking, who truly fuels my fire? Humility isn't denying your light, it's acknowledging the hands that lit the match. Pride thrives in the language of self-sufficiency. I don't need anyone, I can handle this alone. It disguises fragility as strength. Think of a tree that refuses to bend in the wind, it snaps. I once met a man who built a thriving business, but lost his family. He said, I thought providing was enough. I never asked for help. I never admitted I was struggling. Pride tricks us into believing vulnerability is weakness, so we armor ourselves in silence. But true strength isn't in never falling, it's in letting others see you rise. Years later, that man sat at his daughter's wedding, a guest, not a father. He realized too late that his strength had built walls, not a home. Pride's greatest lie? That needing others diminishes you. But consider the ocean. It doesn't boast of its depth. It embraces rivers, rain, and streams. True power flows from interdependence. A leader who admits uncertainty inspires trust. A parent who says, I don't know, but we'll learn together, builds resilience. Strength isn't a fortress, it's a bridge. When you stop fearing collapse, you find freedom in the fall. Pride doesn't always say, I'm better. Sometimes it says, at least I'm not them. Comparison is its favorite tool. A teacher once told me a story. Two rivers flowed from the same mountain. One said, I am greater because I'm deeper. The other said, I am purer because I'm faster. Both failed to see they were fed by the same rain. When we measure ourselves against others, we either inflate or diminish our worth. Both are lies. Your purpose isn't a race or a hierarchy. It's a thread in a tapestry you'll never fully see. Imagine a gardener who grows roses but despairs because they're not orchids. They prune with resentment, blind to the beauty only their roses can bring. Comparison distorts vision. It makes you resent your own soil. I knew a writer who abandoned her novel because it wasn't a bestseller. Years later, a stranger found her discarded manuscript and wrote, Your words saved my life. Your calling isn't to outshine others, but to illuminate your corner of the dark. The world doesn't need more competition. It needs your unique light. There's a sailor who believes he commands the sea. He charts every course, polishes his ship, and boasts of his skill, until a storm tears his sails and hurls him into darkness. Suddenly, his maps mean nothing. His hands shake as he clings to the helm, realizing the ocean was never his to conquer. Pride convinces us we're captains of fate, but humility reveals we're stewards of borrowed time. I once knew a woman who meticulously planned every detail of her life, career, marriage, even the hour she'd have children. When infertility and layoff shattered her blueprint, she collapsed under the weight of why me? It took years for her to see that control is a mirage, a desperate dance to avoid life's unpredictability. True peace isn't in dominating the waves, but learning to sail with them. The wind, the tides, the storms, they remind us we're small but not insignificant. Surrender isn't defeat, it's the wisdom to kneel before forces greater than ambition. Let go of the illusion, and you'll find your hands free to catch miracles you never planned. Pride builds walls to keep out anything that threatens its narrative. Imagine a king who banishes all but the yes men, filling his court with flatterers who mirror his delusions. For a time, he feels invincible until the kingdom crumbles, betrayed by unchecked flaws. I met a brilliant entrepreneur who fired anyone who questioned her vision. I thought dissent was disloyalty, she confessed. But my perfect team missed glaring risks. Pride fears criticism because it clings to the myth of infallibility. Contrast this with a community leader who invited skeptics to her table. Their doubts sharpened my ideas, she said. Even anger taught me empathy. Growth lives in the friction of opposing voices. A forest that fears fire never learns to adapt. A heart that silences rebukes never learns to beat stronger. Surround yourself with echoes and you'll drown in your own voice. Seek dissonance and you'll compose a symphony. Leadership, when poisoned by pride, becomes a crown too heavy to wear. Picture a queen who sits alone on her throne, her advisors too afraid to speak, her people too distant to touch. She confuses authority with superiority, forgetting that crowns are meant to serve, not separate. A teacher once shared a parable. A lamp hung high on a wall, proud of its light, but those below squinted, straining to see. When the lamp lowered itself, the room glowed. Leadership isn't elevation, it's illumination. I recall a CEO who ate in the cafeteria, not the executive suite. I don't lead from a pedestal, he said. I lead from the mess. Pride isolates, humility integrates. Your title isn't a badge of honor, it's a responsibility to kneel and wash feet. The moment you think you're above the work, you've abandoned the mission. Failure is pride's reckoning. A potter once smashed every vase with a flaw until her shelves stood empty. One day she salvaged a cracked piece and filled it with soil. A seedling took root, vines spilling through the fractures. What I called broken, she said, was actually breathing. Pride demands perfection, but humility finds purpose in the imperfect. Think of a parent who hides their mistakes, fearing their children will see weakness. But children don't need heroes, they need humans who say, I messed up, let's try again. Failure isn't the end of your story, it's the plot twist that humbles you into growth. A wound, when tended, becomes a well of wisdom. Stop running from stumbles. Your cracks are where grace floods in. Gratitude is the scalpel that cuts out pride's infection. Start small, the warmth of a mug in your hands, the stranger who held the door, the breath that fuels your voice. A man once told me how he survived despair by listing tiny graces each night, a child's laugh, a sunset, a meal shared. Over time, his hunger for applause faded. I stopped needing to be someone, he said, and started seeing everyone. Gratitude rewires your vision. You notice the hands that grew your food, the hearts that shaped your journey, the grace that turned your stumbling into dance. Pride shouts, I deserve more. Gratitude whispers, I've been given enough. Keep a ledger of thanks and watch arrogance dissolve into awe. The world doesn't owe you, it offers you. Receive it with open palms. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. A famous conductor once stepped off the podium to play second violin. The music wasn't about me, he said. It was about the harmony. Imagine a mountain that envies the valley's meadows, but the valley thrives because it rests low, cradling life in its humility. I knew a mentor who quietly trained her replacement, celebrating when they surpassed her. My legacy isn't in being remembered, she said. It's in being a stepping stone. Pride clings to credit, humility finds joy in contribution. You don't lose value when you shrink your ego. You create space for others to rise. The sun doesn't boast of its light, it simply lets flowers bloom. Be the ground, not the statue. Legacies built on pride are tombstones, cold, forgotten, etched with lies. But legacies of humility are seeds. A wealthy man built a gold-plated monument to himself. Within years, it was vandalized, mocked, left to rust. Meanwhile, a farmer planted orchards whose fruit fed generations. He died nameless, but his trees still whisper his kindness. Pride shouts, look at me. Humility asks, how can I help you see? Your life isn't a trophy to polish. It's a thread in a tapestry woven long before you, enduring long after. Leave behind fingerprints, not monuments. Serve in secret. Love without labels. and let your legacy be the lives who bloomed in your shadow. The world forgets kings. It remembers gardeners.